egotistical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL network.
We're back. Surprise, everybody. Welcome to our season 49 coverage of Saturday Night Live. My name is John Schneider from the Saturday Night Network. Very excited to be back with you on this early Wednesday evening where we got some breaking news today with all of the information on Saturday Night Live's 49th season of the show. And how exciting is this? We finally can get into it. We've been waiting on one of the longest breaks in SNL history to be able to talk about all this. And I'm happy to break down all today's news with my man, Sammy K. Sammy, how are you?
I am doing great, John. It's just very exciting, because obviously, if things were normal, SNL would have come back, 2 weeks ago. So, we're only kind of going to be about a month or so late to the party this year. But we lost shows at the end of last season. There's been all this uncertainty. So to finally get the news that, the show is coming back for season 49 is super exciting. And I'm excited to break down everything we learned today.
Time is so weird because I feel like I got transported from May where I was preparing for the Pete Davidson episode, and now we're here again. But you're right, Sammy. I think the original premiere date was scheduled to be September 30th. And then now, obviously, we're getting October 14th. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to read the news to all of you. I'll read it directly. So again, for those who don't know who we are, so we are the Saturday Night Network. We get to cover the show. We have lots of really fun podcasts every single week about Saturday Night Live. I'll explain to you how our coverage works as we sort of wrap up our discussion today in case you're just jumping in. We have lots of panelists, lots of people from all over the SNL community that join us. So I'm very excited to have you on board if you're just jumping in for the first time. But if you don't know, we work with SNL as press to help promote the show. So they often let us know some information about what's happening, and we're always happy to give that to you, to our listeners here. And we're available on YouTube and on all audio platforms. And today we got a press release from SNL. Can you still hear me okay, Sammy? Still checking.
Still getting some feedback from you.
All right. Do you want to just talk for a minute? I'll just get that fixed. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. So basically, as John was saying, we got a press release basically announcing when the show is coming back. So they're, ever since the writer's strike kind of, finally ended basically a week or so ago, we've all been kind of waiting on SAG to kind of see what's going to go on, with them and, make sure that everything is settled with them. But it turns out that the show is able to come back October 14th. I know that there's a special clause that John might be able to chime in a little bit more on, how the show is able to come back at this time, even though SAG is still working out the details. But the show will be back on October 14th, and we have gotten, the announcements for, the cast. It seems like everybody is coming back, as well as a new cast member who I'm, very excited to talk about because, John, you actually got a chance to see this new cast member over this past summer. Is that correct?
Yes. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, chat, for bearing with me. We don't usually have these audio problems, but Sammy, please let me know if there's any other issues because
we got some. Yeah, we're getting the rust off from being not having a new SNL to talk about. There's bound to be technical difficulties, so bear with us.
That was my strike mic. Yes. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for letting me know. I appreciate that. So let me just go back to say what I was saying, which is, if this first time you're joining us, we do coverage of Saturday Night Live from wall to wall, basically. From right after the show is done, we're breaking things down. We got roundtables, we got statistical analysis, all kinds of stuff. We have analysts from all over who break down the show. And this is our 4th season getting to do this. I'm very excited for that. We're also press which helps promote the show. So we work directly with Saturday Night Live, where they get to send us some press releases with some information. And we are just always so honored to get to share that with all of our friends in the SNL community. So that's what we're going to do here today. Sammy, I know you asked me about my feelings on the new cast member. Well, we're going to talk about it in just a little bit. But first, let me read today's press release that I got sent to me from Saturday Night Live, so everybody has the same information, and then we will break it down. So here we go. Saturday Night Live is to premiere its 49th season on October 14th on NBC and Peacock. So we're back on Peacock for sure, with host Pete Davidson and musical guest Ice Spice. So that is October 14th. The 49th season is going to be back, and Davidson is currently on a stand-up tour throughout the U.S. and Canada. So Pete Davidson returning to Studio 8H. Basically, he was a cast member, very well known, who left the show a couple seasons ago, and now he is coming back. And we'll be previewing what we may see from Pete in this episode. It sort of makes sense to me, Sammy, that Pete is coming back because he's a friend of the show, and given what was happening with SAG, it just makes sense that they had him in the back pocket to throw in there. Is that your feeling on it too?
Yeah, totally. And obviously, towards the end of season 48, as we had talked about back then, he was supposed to host, I believe, with musical guest Lil Uzi Vert for that first show in May. And, there's a lot of anticipation. Obviously, he had only just left the show back in season 47. So for him to return then, made a ton of sense because of, Bupkis' Peacock show, which, we got a chance to cover. And, obviously talked to Dave Cyrus back in May, which was really exciting. If you guys haven't seen that interview, definitely check that out. But now, we're a couple months removed from that. And around that time when, the show started getting canceled, I'm like, oh, I wonder, is Pete going to be back for next season? And, that is the case. And, I'm excited to see Pete back. I honestly feel more excited to see Pete back for the first show in season 49, as opposed to one of the last shows in season 48, because we have a little bit more kind of time removed from his time on the show. And, I think it will be kind of cool to see him interact with, the new cast members that joined last season, and as well as this new cast member, Chloe, who, is the sole new cast member for this season. So I'm definitely excited to see what Pete has to bring to the show.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Am I good now?
Yes.
Okay. So sorry, everybody. I don't know what's going on, but it's a really great way to kick off the season. Just hitting home.
Yeah, no. It's good to get it out now, and then, hopefully in the future, no technical difficulties.
Exactly. Yeah. So, my feeling on Pete Davidson, like I said, is I think that they were just ready to go whenever they needed him. In this case, they were very much like, we don't know if SAG's going to be done and then if anybody's ready to promote anything, but Pete is. So let's get him out there. Ice Spice is a pretty big name this summer. Taylor Swift is obviously the biggest name in the world, and everything is Taylor Swift. And a lot of news broke about how Ice Spice is very good friends with Taylor Swift and appeared on a Taylor Swift track. So this to me makes sense as your premier musical guest. Very, very popular artist nowadays. Are you familiar with Ice Spice, Sammy?
Yeah, how you doing, fellow kids, is what I'd say to Ice Spice, the 30 Rock joke. No, I mean, I know her from, obviously, TikTok stuff. She was in the Barbie soundtrack this summer with Nicki Minaj, and she was recently in a Dunkin' Donuts commercial with Ben Affleck, which was like the weirdest collab I've ever seen in a commercial. She has her own drink with Dunkin' Donuts right now, some promotion she's doing. So obviously a pretty big name. And, as far as like looking at a lineup, seeing like what SNL is trying to do to kind of bring people back to the show after such a long break, you're bringing back probably the most famous cast member, that has come out of the show in recent times, for both on-screen and off-screen antics. And then, a musical guest that can kind of target that, younger demo. So maybe not something that diehard, SNL and well, I don't know, comedy fans, the musical guest is, maybe, less, they have less of a preference or whatever, but, definitely going for a younger demographic is what I'm saying, versus just the typical person who's been watching SNL for, 30 plus years.
Yeah, I think I said this in May, but I think my feeling on Pete's episode is going to be, or like my big question going into the episode, is Pete going to take over the show? Because he never really did that as a cast member very much. He never really like dominated an episode in a way that a lot of former cast members who come back to host have. So is this episode going to feel very Pete Davidson centric, or is Pete going to just be the additional cast member to this cast? That's the big question for me. So I just sort of wonder, what the vibe will be like as far as a premiere is concerned. Are we going to get someone who's just really dominating the episode in that sense? So yeah, I don't know. I'm curious how Pete will blend with this current cast, knowing that he's been off the show for a little bit.
Yeah, and I think there's a ton of examples from the show's history where you have somebody who, was on the show for a short amount of time, who didn't get a ton of screen time. I don't know if that's something you can necessarily say, Pete fits in that category because, he was, very famous for other reasons while during his time on the show, but then they come back to host and, they do dominate the episode. So if I had to guess, this will be a Pete dominated episode of SNL, especially, you know, the fact that he was supposed to host in May and now he's coming back. I feel like there has to be kind of a mutual feeling between Lauren and Pete that like they want this episode to happen. I think now that Bupkis has kind of been out for many months now, this isn't really a promotional thing. This is more so just like an alumni coming back to the show to host.
Right.
So I feel like there is passion there from Pete's end. I guess we'll see on October 14th if that's the case. But I have a feeling that this will be a pretty Pete dominated show, which is something we haven't seen, like you said, a ton during his time on the show. So I think that'll be interesting to see the type of sketches and the type of roles that he plays throughout the episode.
Yeah, and here's a good plug, which is Sammy brought up the fact that we spoke with Dave Cyrus. So Dave Cyrus is one of Pete's best friends, wrote on the show while Pete was there, and also helped produce Bupkis. And before Bupkis was released in May, we covered, by the way, Bupkis in full, which you can go and watch now. And it is a very interesting show. There's some good episodes that are like really, I think, quality, like high quality. And we asked Dave Cyrus when he was on with us what he thought a Pete Davidson hosted SNL would look like. We talked about the episode with him potentially, and he did mention that the episode will probably air in the fall. So I think that you can get some good insight from that interview if you want to go back and check that one out. So that is the first episode. We're going to be talking a lot more about Pete in that episode leading up to things as we go through our coverage next week, previewing the show. Week number 2 has been announced October 21st, and that is a double duty episode, host and musical guest Bad Bunny, who is one of the biggest artists in the world right now. I mean, he is so huge. I'm playing his music basically at every wedding that I've DJ'd this summer where I've been out there. People love Bad Bunny, and he's a really fun guy. I've seen him out on the late night shows before. People just really enjoy him. I think this like totally makes sense. Sort of reminds me a little bit of what they did with Jack Harlow last year. But I do wonder if Bad Bunny has more of like an overtly out personality where he'd be more engaging. So I'd be curious to compare those two examples. But I do think that, again, another indication with the SAG strike not being fully resolved yet, that they're going to book a musician here just to have those first 2 weeks not be, an actor promoting a movie. So that is why it makes sense to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that was also my first thought when I saw this. I mean, yeah, like you said, Bad Bunny's a huge star, and a huge international star. That's something to, very much, put a light on, because I feel like, I don't personally listen to a lot of Bad Bunny music. I've heard him featured on a lot of music that I listen to. He did a song with, Travis Scott and The Weeknd this past summer that he was featured on, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be featured on Drake's new album that's coming out on Friday. So maybe there's a little promo there. But somebody who is a huge star, I feel like, we had a lot of conversations last year about how, the type of star that SNL was able to get coming out of the pandemic. And obviously, we went from pandemic where things were weird to now we're coming out of strikes where things are weird. So it's curious to kind of track how the booking is changing and all that. But I mean, Bad Bunny's a huge name. So I think, you look at both of these lineups, next to each other, and SNL is getting huge names to be on the show coming out of a, kind of a period where, we haven't had a lot of shows. So I think that's exciting. And Bad Bunny has also been in some movies. I know he was in a movie called Bullet Train that came out last summer, which is an action movie with Brad Pitt. And I think he's trying to kind of do the, musician / actor sort of thing. So, we'll see if he can translate that over to sketch comedy. I'm sure, he'll be able to bring that kind of flair and his personality to the sketches.
Yes. What NBC said in the press release was Bad Bunny will do double duty on October 21st for his SNL hosting debut and second musical guest appearance. So in case you did forget, Bad Bunny was a musical guest in season 46 with host Reggae Jean Page. So you can go and see his music on Saturday Night Live previously. The Grammy Award-winning artist's fourth studio album broke the record earlier this year as the most streamed album ever on Spotify. So very, very big deal for that. Overall, Sammy, my feelings about these first two hosts and musical guests, very exciting. I'm just so happy that the show is back. I don't believe anywhere in a few weeks we will be discussing that the biggest storyline from these two episodes was the host and the musical guests. I think these are both good choices and it's fun, but the cast has the opportunity to dominate these two episodes. They're going to be the focal points. So it is an opportunity here to really establish themselves and build to what season 49 is looking. We're not bringing in a major star that's going to take some of the spotlight away from the big personalities, the big characters. I think there's an opportunity here for SNL to really come out of the gates with a cast-focused season based on these two choices. So that's why I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I think you're absolutely right. And, we're going to transition over to talking about the cast here in a second, but, we're not having, as far as we know at this moment, we could have a situation, like we get a last minute Chris Redd is leaving the show sort of thing, but it seems like the cast is all returning for this upcoming season. So I'm excited to see, there was a lot of exciting momentum going into the end of last season. So the opportunity for them to kind of, continue that in episodes that aren't dominated by, huge, hosts. I mean, these are huge hosts, but, somebody that's going to be able to, give them the room to shine in these episodes. So I think that's a good decision on the show's part.
Right. So after all the cast departures that we had between 47 and 48, the word is that there is no cast departures between 48 and 49, that everybody will be returning to the show. Things could always change, but for now, we have the entire cast returning. We have James and Sarah, who are upgraded from featured player to repertory status. So it's no longer featuring James Austin Johnson and Sarah Sherman, but instead we have one new featured player, and that is Chloe Troast, who is joining the show. And I'm very excited to talk about Chloe. We have two Chloes on the cast. I was talking to some people earlier trying to figure out whenever we've had two people with the same first name on the show before. And I think unless somebody in the chat can correct me, I think it's the first time since we had Chris Rock and Chris Farley in the same class with each other, but we got two Chloes in season 49.
Well, are we counting Mikey Day and Michael Che?
Oh, I guess that's true because we say it differently, but yes, there's a lot of Michaels. Yes, that's true.
Yes, but if you're
Michael
talking
Longfellow. Michael Longfellow too. Yeah.
Right. Michael. Yeah. So that maybe not the best SNL stat there, but
Yes, that's true. Okay, forget it. Well, let's talk about the new oh yeah, Chris Elliott, Chris Farley. Thanks, Gal. That's a good one too. Yeah. So there have been a few examples of this, but we're gonna have to come up with a good way to talk about Chloe Troast versus Chloe Fineman. I assume Chloe Fineman will probably remain Chloe, and then Troast will be Troast, but we'll see whatever we feel. But here we go. Here's a headshot of Chloe Troast as sent to me by NBC, and let's talk about her, who I believe all they said was Chloe Troast joins the cast as a featured player. I believe she's an NYU graduate. I can tell you what I know about Chloe Troast, which was that I went, if you listen to our Just for Laughs coverage from this year, I went to Just for Laughs and I covered it as media, and I got to meet Chloe Troast as she interviewed Please Don't Destroy in a conversation with Please Don't Destroy thing that I went to, which was really cool. It was basically sit down for an hour, not the typical PDD show where Chloe interviewed them, asked them questions about stuff, and the truth is that Please Don't Destroy and Chloe are as close as can possibly be. They hired one of their friends onto the show, and this is an extension to me of Please Don't Destroy, and their ascension at the show is having Chloe Troast, one of their best friends, become a part of it, and I'm very excited for what we're going to see from her. What are your thoughts, Sammy?
Yeah, no, I'm obviously very excited to, see somebody new join the show, and especially somebody who has these ties to Please Don't Destroy, because, I think everything, especially from the pre-tape side of things, but also, some of their writing contributions, it's been cool to see their kind of ascension these past 2 seasons, now entering their third season on the show. And she's a NYU grad. She's super young. I mean, this is just such an exciting addition going into the season. I mean, imagine, I'm just thinking about, like, from her perspective, just trying to be an actor or be in the entertainment industry right now with everything going on with the strikes, to be able to get an opportunity kind of coming right out of that to be on Saturday Night Live is, just amazing. And obviously very excited for her, and, wishing that, she has a successful, first couple episodes and first season. And, this is the first time we've had just a sole cast member join the show since 2018, right? When Ego joined the show.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that's a interesting stat. I mean, when we talked to Bobby Moynihan, last year, he talked about, what it's like to kind of, join SNL as the sole cast member, and how he kind of wished he was with a group, but, it's kind of nice knowing that she already has this connection with Please Don't Destroy kind of going into this season. It seems like also, she is, on her Instagram, she's, connected with a lot of people currently on the show, whether it's, the other cast members or writers. So, I'm hoping that she's able to kind of transition, as a featured player, smoothly, and, that things, I'm excited to see what she, brings in these first 2 episodes.
Yeah, I think she's going to have one of the easiest transitions ever, because she has such a support system around her already. And I mean that in a good way. Like, I'm not one of those people that watches SNL and I'm like, you can't hire all your friends. Like, I think it's good if people come into Saturday Night Live with like an existing relationships, because SNL is like, it's alliances at the show is what we talk about all the time on this podcast as being so important. She comes in with an existing user base of writers to help her on the show. Like, that is just so great for her and her, ability to get into the cast. And the truth is that, like, I really feel like we talked a little bit this week on the greatest cast members, about how season 49 could be a very even cast between the men and the women. And I do think that Chloe really helps in that. I think, losing Kate and Cecily and 80 going into last year, definitely you felt it. Like, we were ready for them to move on, but there was a hole in the cast. And I do feel that Chloe could be a great person to help with some of the women on the show, as to, getting them more involved in sketches and having those really stand out and breakout moments, not to take away anything from the Heidis and the Egos of the world, who are really, starting to ascend. And Chloe was in a lot of sketches last year as well, other Chloe. So, there are opportunities here for Chloe Troast to really have an impact on season 49. And I don't think it's going to take her that long. Whereas with the previous cast over the last few years, when we were podcasting about 46, 47, and 48, it was always about which new player was having a tough time. I don't think we're going to get that when you get one new player injected into the cast who was already friends with so many people there.
No, that's a great point. And, as fans of the show, being able to, see somebody come in and, be already so connected with, a group of writers, already having kind of an established shorthand and collaboration. I think as viewers, we're just going to be treated to already kind of, well-formed ideas between, Chloe and Please Don't Destroy, having that prior relationship. It's only going to kind of benefit the way they're able to, develop sketches and write together. And obviously, I'm sure she'll collaborate with other people on the show as well, other writers. But, I think I'm excited to see, will she, kind of enter that world of the Please Don't Destroy pre-tapes, as we've kind of talked about. And we've seen other cast members on the show, like Sarah, kind of, live in that world. Will we see, Chloe Troast kind of enter that as well? I'm, kind of curious to see. That's just one aspect of the things I'm kind of looking forward to, and already starting to, get excited about the possibility of seeing.
Yeah, I do think a big question for me, if I'm being honest, is how does Sarah Sherman now fit into the Chloe Troast PDD sketches? Because I know Sarah writes a lot with Dan Bula and also PDD. like that's the group of people I'm very curious. Is it a seamless fit to put Sarah and Chloe together? Because if you look on Chloe's Instagram, it's not in like the gore area that Sarah tends to go, or like these like, out there characters, but definitely Chloe, she was on Just for Laughs, or she was at Just for Laughs in 2023 as a new face in the character section. So they do like new faces, groups, 1, 2 characters and unrepped and stuff like that. But she was in the characters. So she brings characters to the show. And I'm curious if it's like, are we going to be talking halfway through the season? Like if Chloe Troast has a really good episode, does that mean that Sarah does not? Or are they complementary of each other? Do they help and bring each other up? Because I do see some similarities in the two of them, and how they will work with the cast around them will be the most fascinating question I have for Chloe Troast right now.
Yeah, that is definitely a good question. I feel like, obviously Sarah is, this is going to be her third season on the show. She's a repertory player. I think she has kind of established herself and her name to where, it's very, I don't necessarily see that happening, but it could, it could happen. I don't know, but I do hope it's a complimentary sort of situation between the two of them. But I don't know Trost's kind of brand of comedy enough. I'm, honestly only learned about who she is today. So, I'm excited to kind of, dive in and kind of see, what the similarities are there. I mean, from kind of just automatic, looking at the headshot sort of thing, I definitely do see, how you can maybe cast her and Sarah in similar roles on the show. But I'm curious to see, how different their comedic voices are. I'm sure, Sarah is such a unique voice. So I'm very, curious to see kind of what, Chloe's brand is. And, I would love to see, a way that they can complement each other in sketches. I think, to just add to that kind of absurd humor, if that is kind of in her bag as well. I've very much enjoyed everything Sarah's brought to the table. So hopefully, Trost is able to kind of bring some of that weird energy to the show. And I think it is interesting too that you mentioned that she's from the character side of things, because correct me if I'm wrong, but last year, the 4 featured players we got, they all kind of had more of a stand-up background. Is that correct? And it seems like she's got more of the, acting / maybe improv sort of the background.
That is very true. Yeah, this is a very different hire than the new players we got last season. They all had more stand-up backgrounds. They're all still trying to figure out how to do the game of Saturday Night Live. Chloe Troast has a background in, creating these characters and has been working on this. Like, to me, this is one of the more polished hires I think we've had in a very long time. Not only her relationships and, like her social relationships that she has, where she's, gone to parties and worked on comedy shows with people who have been at the show, but also the fact that she's worked on characters coming into it. Like, I think of a good example that went in the opposite direction, with all our love and great time talking to him, but to Aristotle, who came in with some great characters, but didn't have the relationships. And I think his career at Saturday Night Live would have been fantastic had he had those relationships. So I think for me, the fact that and by the way, I see Gelb in the chat mentions, like, she is a stand-up as well. So she does stand up, she does characters, and she has relationships. To me, she has everything you need to be set up for a successful career on the show. Now she has to go out and do it. So that's what's fascinating. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I left you speechless.
Yeah, no, I was just like, yep. No, I mean, he said it. He nailed it.
Yes. Well, if you do like some of this conversation and you like us breaking down all of the Saturday Night Live cast members and everything they do and will do on the show, we're going to have plenty of that. Like I said, wall-to-wall coverage of season 49 of Saturday Night Live beginning next week. So here is our schedule coming up for next week as the show ramps up and comes back on the 14th, 10 days away from now. Next Monday, we have our next edition of our character countdown. So we're going to stick that with one more Monday. We'll be back to release 4 more cast members on the list of greatest cast members of all time. That show will switch over to Thursdays once season 49 begins. We also have 2 more shows coming out next week. First, we'll have our preseason roundtable, which will take place Wednesday night, 1 week from now at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll be back with some really fun guests. We have some guests from all around different areas of the SNL community, different podcasts, some journalists will jump in with us to preview the season. We're going to have some more information then to talk through with you. We'll make some predictions. That will be very fun. And then Thursday night, if you like drafts, that show is for you, because Thursday night I'll be back with Sammy and a bunch of our other great podcasters to do our cast draft, where we will draft the cast members for season 49. The winner, or the winning team with the most sketch appearances in season 49, will win that draft. So that will be next Thursday. That will be our last preseason show. And then we will be live immediately after the Pete Davidson and Ice Spice episode of Saturday Night Live on October 14th for our first hot take show of the season, where we will get all of the takes from some great podcasters and everybody in the chat. So I'm excited. We're ramping up for 49. We got so much content, and I'm so excited for the show to come back. So welcome back, Saturday Night Live. Welcome back, Sammy. Thank you for joining us tonight. You want to do any plugs?
No, this was just super fun, and I'm glad that we were able to, have this news to break down. And yeah, like John said, you'll catch me on the draft next week, and check out all of our superfan takeovers that maybe you missed over the summer. And you can find me at that Sammy K on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Working on the new Instagram handle. You'll hear about that in the future, but you'll see me here on the Saturday Night Network.
Looking forward to it, buddy. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us live today for this breaking news edition of the Saturday Night Network. We will see you next time, everybody. Here we go. Season 49.